Today is the 25th of October 2015, and this video is going to be about how to interpret and deal with reversed cards. And this is because a subscriber whose name is Pandora, she emailed me and she said that she was struggling on occasions with reverse cards. Most of the time they make sense, right? Especially when you read them in conjunction with the surrounding cards. But sometimes she can't work out whether a reverse card represents more of something or less of the upright meaning, or does it mean the opposite, or whatever is going on. And she especially struggles with the Five of Batons and the Five of Swords. So I want to give you a couple of ideas, including the easy way to treat reverse cards. And this may help you feel comfortable or confident enough to include them in your readings if you don't already do so. Because they can give you a level of understanding that you don't get just from the cards themselves, or just from if the cards are all upright. So I'm going to talk about the Five of Batons, the Five of Swords, the King of Swords, the Two of Cups, and I think the Four of Cups. I've got this outline that I'm going to follow. So I think it's important to remember that any card can represent the questioner, or somebody involved with the question and the answer, or a type of situation or a condition, right? So any card can represent any of these three, or more than one of these three possibilities. Because and it may be that some readers don't like to use reverse cards because they aren't sure what the card or who the card is referring to. So you may, as a reader, you may feel that you ought to know if the card is referring to the questioner, or if it's somebody else, or if it's talking about a situation. But the thing is, you, the reader, you don't have to know this. You know, we've got the idea that a psychic knows the future in some detail. You know, so a psychic could look at that Three of Cups and know if it's about the questioner or somebody else, or if it's about the situation. But the thing is, the reader doesn't need to know. You just talk. Because the thing is, a reverse card, it can be describing the questioner and somebody else. It doesn't have to be just one of the three possibilities. Or it could be all three. It could be the questioner and another person and the situation that has to be gone through. Because if you think about it, other people we need other people just to a large extent because they teach us about us. So that a card that shows a strength or a weakness in somebody else can also be pointing out an important lesson for us to learn. So a court card, for instance, that more obviously represents a person, can have more than one connection. It can describe somebody else, but it can also be the lesson or the experience that or that the questioner himself or herself is meant to be going through. So with all this in mind, remember the word if with the reverse card and talk to the questioner. So if the Five of Wands comes up and it's reversed, you say, if the card, the Five of Batons reversed, is referring to you, and then you look at the picture, you're being pulled in different directions. And you can be unsure, because it's reversed, let's say you're unsure about which direction to choose, or you're unsure if any of them is the right direction to go in. Right? So we're looking at, when the card is upright, you're sure. You've got five possibilities. When it's upside down, you're unsure. We're taking a kind of negative meaning because the card is upside down. Right, so if it's referring to you, then this is what's going on. If it's referring to other people, right, there's five batons. There can be several other people who are in competition with each other, or who feel the need to prove themselves in the situation. With that, so think about people acting in that way. And then you say to the questioner, watch out for overreactions in the other people involved, because people can act out of character in order to make themselves seem important or to try and prove a point, right? So you're dealing with sort of maybe over-the-top behaviour on the part of other people involved in the question, because the 5 of Batons is upside down. There's competition, but it's too strong, or it's out of place, right? In some way, there's something not quite right with it because the card is upside down. Or let's say we've got, so if the card is referring to you, the questioner, then this. If it's referring to somebody else, then this. On the other hand, if it's referring to a situation, right, the third possibility, you're dealing with a multiple choice situation. And maybe all of them are okay, but you can't have them all. And maybe you have to make a decision about which path to take or which plan to follow. So because it's upside down, you can be unsure. So what you do is you think about the result that you want and pick the option or the options that are going to bring that about. You know the end point, and you figure out which of the different possibilities is going to get you to that end point. So this can mean you need to take time to prioritize. You look at the different possibilities. There don't have to be 5, but there's more than one. Right, so you take time to prioritize, so you know how or how much to deal with the different possibilities. At the same time, the card's placement in a spread can be important in order to know how to deal with it. So the reverse card might be referring to something that happened or maybe didn't happen in the past. So in this case, the question is probably going to recognize the condition that you would describe or the person that you describe. So it could show past behavior on the part of the questioner or another person who displays certain characteristics as shown by the card. Or it could point to a certain situation or a particular condition that the questioner went through. And maybe it was pleasant or unpleasant, and you tell that depending on the card itself. So the reverse 3 of swords is different from the reverse 3 of cups. One is more painful, let's say, the sword one. Or the reverse card might be describing the present. So it can be the questioner, somebody else, or a situation. But because it's the present, you can look at the cards of the past, and here you've got something you can compare the reverse card to. So if you use the example of the 5 of Batons, then that card shows a variety of possibilities, and maybe there's too much choice. So if the cards for the past show stability, right, you were stable in the past, now you've got multiple choice upside down, then this 5 of Batons probably shows some kind of problem. So in the past, you had a direction because there was stability or clarity from the card in the past, but now that's changed, or it needs to be redefined. So you did know where you were going, but now you're not so sure. So think about where you want to go, or what needs to be changed to make it come about. Whereas, if you've got the 5 of Batons in the present, but the cards for the past showed maybe a reluctance to move on, you were a bit too fixed, or maybe indecision, right? Then the reverse 5 of Batons can show an improvement, right, compared to the past, because with the 5 of Batons reversed, there's activity going on, the people, moving around and competing. So there's energy to take action, and that's an improvement on indecision shown in the past. Right, so there are new possibilities, even if they're not quite welcome, right? Because you might be happy with being undecided, and you maybe don't yet know what the final decision is going to be. So you may not be happy with the possibilities or the range of possibilities shown by the 5 of Batons reversed. So in the same way, if the 5 of Batons reversed is in some way in the future, then you're going to have at least 2 cards to compare it with to get an idea of whether the variety of activity that's shown by the card is going to be a positive force for change, right? Because maybe you realize that you're going to need to decide on a particular course of action. Or is this 5 of Batons reverse going to get in the way or get you sidetracked away from good ideas? shown by the cards in the present and the past. So any card can represent the questioner or somebody else or a situation. And that's the easy way to read reverse cards. Think of the word if. You might want to think of the King of Swords. I had a thought about it. So the King of Swords is somebody who's right, okay, because they're a king. But it's swords, so maybe they're a bit distant, right, or hard to get close to. Maybe because he keeps himself separate in order to get the job done, just because the King of Swords. So when the King of Swords is reversed, his being, or the person being separate from other people, may be a problem. So maybe people no longer respond well, or they get tired of having to defer to this person without being acknowledged or appreciated, right? Because maybe the King of Swords is all about business and get the result, get it done, and doesn't take time to be nice to people or to make them feel welcome or appreciated. Then think of the Six of Cups, right? The man or the boy and the girl exchanging gifts. This shows friendship, love, compatibility, exchange of gifts, and so on. So when this card is reversed, when the King of Swords is reversed, you get hurt feelings. But with the Six of Swords reversed, it can show disappointment of some sort that has to be dealt with. So the two cards, the King of Swords reversed and the Six of Cups reversed, describe two very different kinds of situations. So what we would expect, or the kind of normal behavior we would expect, is different in each case. So an upright card can mean do this, as shown by the picture, whereas a reverse card can mean don't do this, again as shown by the picture. So the reverse King of Swords can mean don't be separate from other people. Or maybe it means if you act like the overpowering king, right, and use fear or threats of punishment because there's a sword to get what you want, you might get some reaction, but it's probably going to backfire. There's a better way to deal with people, and that's going to be a more productive method for you. Or with the Six of Cups reversed, this can mean you should be less giving for a while so you don't get taken advantage of. So the idea of the Six of Cups can be a gift, but the Six of Cups reverse, a gift gone wrong, or the wrong type of gift, or a gift unappreciated, right? So in some way change your givingness. Because the Six of Cups reverse, let's say in the future, can be a warning about what not to do. So if the reverse king describes somebody else, then that person could be tough to deal with, maybe because they're insecure, which is why they think that being rough and hostile will bring the results, even if it doesn't. Or if the Six of Cups reversed describes a situation, it's not one of open hostility that you might expect with the reverse King of Swords, right? But it's more like disappointment or guilt or resentment, maybe, because something has been offered with love, but it hasn't been returned in kind. Or maybe it's love gone wrong, or misunderstood messages of affection, that kind of thing. I think that reverse cards are easier to deal with when we have an idea of the type of situation the picture shows. And I think it's a good idea to turn your own impressions of the illustration into a few key words that sum up what's going on. And ideally, these keywords should be normal or easily recognized by anybody and not too personal. Right, so if you look at that Seven of Swords, it can remind you of a Renaissance fair that you went to once upon a time, and you bought some fast food and you threw up later. So that Renaissance fair and the flag can make you think of stomach problems. Okay, so you can't then take that Seven of Swords reversed and in a reading for somebody else say, okay, this shows stomach problems, because the person's not going to understand why, right? So they're not going to feel that they're participants in the reading. But if you notice the way the swords are being held in that kind of awkward way, and point out they could be carried in a safer way, then that can alert the questioner to possible cuts or accidents through not paying enough attention to security, to safety precautions. And the question is going to be able to see the sense of that. So the idea of picking a key word or two for any given card can be useful. It gives us something manageable to work with. So the Four of Cups, for instance, shows somebody leaning against a tree and looking at 3 cups on the ground in front of them. There's a 4th cup off to the right, up in the air, held by a hand. So we might think of this card as showing concentrated focus or tunnel vision, maybe, because you're looking straight ahead. We see what we want to see, or we have eyes only for what we want or what we expect. And this can mean that we don't notice other possibilities that we could maybe use to our advantage. So maybe the questioner is ignoring an offer or failing to see new chances or alternatives to what they already had in mind. So if the card is referring to somebody else, the indication can be that they won't notice something. So make sure they get a reminder or a map or a report. They seem to be focused on their own projects or desires, so they maybe won't hear or see something off to the side. But make sure they're paying attention, or that they're going to show up, or whatever it is, and don't assume that they will. This Four of Cups reversed could also refer to the questioner. So you tell them to pay attention to what is not in front of you. And it could be something you hear, in passing, or think about, a random thought, or something you notice, but you don't pay much attention to it. But with the Four of Cups reversed, there's a warning. So don't assume that this little thing you hear or see or notice doesn't matter. Follow it up for a bit and see where it leads, and then decide, rather than decide on the spur of the moment. So if we do the same thing with the Five of Swords, it shows somebody who's been defeated, somebody who won, and somebody else who may or may not have been part of the conflict going to the defeated person. So what do we call this scene? Maybe we call it after effects, right? Or maybe a phrase like, what next? Is going to be better, because there's not much going on in the scene. There's activity in the scene, but it's as if we're arriving after the main drama has happened. So the conflict has taken place, and it's a time afterwards. And this may be a 5-minute break to get your breath back, and decide on what your next move is going to be. Or it could be a longer period of delay when you take time to get your bearings, so you know what's going on with the new situation or with the new relationship. Because if you've had a fight or an argument with somebody, you know that it takes a little bit of time to get back to where you were, or to get used to the new situation. You need to adjust. And this can be a period of adjustment that's shown by the Five of Cups reversed, or by the Five of Cups. So there are 3 people in the picture. So if the card is referring to the questioner, then he or she should be clear about the role they played in the drama or in the conflict, or be clear about their contribution to what's going on or what's just happened. When the card is upright, we can think that, okay, you're going to know to do this and you're going to know what you did. But when the card is reversed, they won't. So they may think they were the victim, and not realize that they contributed to the aggression. Or they may have been unaware of the damage they were doing, right? Because we can say things and do things that turn out to be quite hurtful and inconsiderate, but we didn't realize it at the time. Didn't see it that way when it was actually going on. The battery ran out in the camera, so I had to set everything up again to do this last little bit, so it may look slightly different. Okay, so with all this in mind, when the Five of Swords is reversed, it can mean that you have to be clear about your role, right? The 3 people in the card. be clear about your role or the part that you played in the situation that you're asking about. Or maybe the part you should have played, you wish you had played in a difficult situation. And if the idea for this reverse card is what next, then you're going to make a better future decision, a better decision about your future if you face the truth about your past, right? So there's value in understanding and thinking about and assessing the role that you played in the situation. At the same time, the card can show a pause in the action or in the interaction between the people. There isn't a lot of activity, even though the fellow on the left is going to maybe comfort the person who's been defeated. But there isn't a lot of activity going on because people seem to be gathering themselves or thinking about their next move or reflecting on what's just gone on. So when this card comes up in a reading, it can point to the importance of taking some time to get yourself together. You breathe deeply and you settle yourself, right? Just because of what the picture shows. When it's reversed, though, it could be an indication that people don't want to take a break, or they don't want to slow down, or they don't want to find a point of equilibrium first. It's as if they're still caught up in the drama of the moment and their adrenaline is still flowing. So that if they make a next step when the adrenaline is still flowing, they're going to be off balance in their next actions. So what they do in the future isn't going to work out as well as it could. And that can be the advice of the card with the Five of Swords reversed. Settle down. So reverse cards can be tricky to deal with, but the thing is, so can life. What we go through and the decisions that we have to make, it's not always clear. And it's not always an open and shut case, right? You don't always know. It's not always obvious what can or should be done, even if we would like it to be like that. And a reverse card can show the fact that it's not obvious. But at the same time, I think the reader should always keep the question in mind. And remember that the meaning of a card depends to some extent, and maybe to a large extent, on the question that was asked. So when you, the reader, remind yourself of the question, you can then more easily select the correct approach to the card. So as an example, with that Five of Swords reversed, it can be a pause, right, as people gather themselves. Or it can be after effects, what do you do next? Or it can be what next? Or it can be the price that you pay for behaving in a certain way. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Sometimes you're left to pick up the pieces, right? So when you think about what the question that has actually been asked is, then it's going to be easier to know what possible type of meaning makes the most sense. So depending on the question, does it make more sense to figure out what next? Or does it make most sense to think about your role in the action that happened? So when you know the question, you figure out the possibility that makes most sense to give an answer, and you talk about it, the question is going to understand. I think that was it. So I hope to have another video up next weekend, the 1st of November. But if it doesn't happen, there'll be one on the 8th at the latest. I have to do extra babysitting next week. So I'm going to lose another day. So not lose a day, but I won't have time to do preparation and filming for a video. So there may be a week's delay until the next one. And that's why. So in the meantime, have a good week or have a good 2 weeks, and we'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.